Right, it would have been news if Manchester United wasn't in the news. You know, we've been linked with Sandro Tonali, another opportunity. You know, Mike McGrath coming out with all the goods, but, you know, should we? Is the question. 100 million is being quoted, but is that the correct 100 million? Now, I'm going to dive into that, but before we do it, you know, it's bread and butter to any YouTube video. So if you don't mind, guys, girls, broccolis, just please smash the likes, and we can get straight diving into why I believe Tonali would be an amazing fit and why we can't be passing up opportunities like that. So yes, right, let's just dive into it. Tonali is mint. I think that's the key word, mint. Yeah, this man here there's a reason why he has the Italian stallion under his name, and yes, not because he's got black hair, not because he's just Italian. I mean, he's just actually a real good midfielder that is a marauder that can definitely add a lot of qualities to a Man United midfield that needs correct balance. And if he's involved, you have to be having his name at high on the shortlist, as Mike McGrath said in the Telegraph. Now, how much of this is credible? You're asking, who is Mike McGrath? He's the one that actually broke the Mbumo news, so I'm interested to see if this is another story that he may get correct and if it is something that United will pursue. Now, if we do a little bit of, you know, rewinding back into the, you know, the recent transfer window in January, you know, Tonali was actually offered out to Arsenal. So he's clearly, or his agent is clearly looking for the exit overall, because you look at Newcastle's situation, they're not in the best of hands at the moment under Eddie Howe. And even if he does get sacked, it may not be Champions League football, which is, again, rotating in a version where it's not exactly stable. And you look at Newcastle's project and you wouldn't say it's getting any better. And Tonali is, I believe, age of 25. And you look at someone who's been in the game for quite a while. When you do remove the likes of Casemiro out of that fold of what Manchester United squad currently offers, you do need at least a decent amount of experience to maybe come in the fold. Now, it's all nice being linked to Whartons, Balebas, Andersons, but we're talking about someone who's prime age, that's, you know, wanting to win, willing to prove themselves at a high level. I think, you know, you look no further than a man like that. You know, we saw recently even the likes of Declan Rice go to Arsenal's for 100 odd million, and them two players are quite similar. For me, you know, both very strong, both got a very good passing range, different kind of, you know, passing range as well. You know, you call him a bit more of a vertical engine, to say the least. And for me, what we lack is players who can get across the pitch as fast as possible, but also with, you know, intent and quality. And for me, dare I say, that key word in United's midfield is some physicality, but damn sure that when Casemiro leaves, it's going to be a gaping hole. And I don't think Tonali can, I don't think he can really replace Casemiro at what he does exactly, because there will always be questions. Is this guy a 6 or is he an 8? Now, in today's football, you could say that the hybrid is the perfect fold, because who is really a 6? And if they are that 6, how good are they? And how many are there out there? You know, you look at Caicedo, 6/8. Declan Rice, 6/8. Gravenberch, same thing. The list is endless, right? And you look at Man United's current makeup, and you look at, obviously, Kobbie Mainoo, you know, the future of Manchester United. We're calling, you know, Baby Seedorf, of course, generational talent. Furthermore, you need to find partners for him that's definitely going to upgrade and level up his game as much as the person coming in. You know, what kind of qualities would suit him. And now there was a lot of screens for Onana, obviously, a couple years ago, but now you're looking at, you know, Wharton. Is that really good balanced pivot to go with him? Maybe. Is there better ones? Yes, of course there is. Anderson, probably the best out of the bunch that we've even mentioned, or even Baleba. But the difference is when you do look at these kind of 6/8s, you could actually put Anderson, Tonali and Baleba in the same kind of bracket, not Wharton as much. And you would argue that United do need a couple of those, because if one of them is to get injured, then who's coming in to be that physical presence that can get about the pitch and, you know, keep the ball, you know, picking up the back four, you know, pinging the ball, you know, 50 yards into a corner so someone can run onto it and create a chance. That's not called a Langer, you know, Newcastle. But for me, it's true that he is high on the shortlist. It goes to show that, you know, INEOS are looking at a correct path, and again, going from A to B to C, because, you know, the last transfer window was very positive in hindsight now. You know, looking at Mbumo, Cunha's, Sesko was definitely a bit more of a different player, because he's more of a project and coming from another league. You know, Patrick Dorgu being another one of them. But we can also say other names, level like low risk in terms of Larmans, because he was so cheap. But you look at what United need right now, it's kind of showing that, you know, proven Prem players will get Manchester United back into at least a level where they're competing, knowing that players are going to do the jobs required and not be waiting 2-3 years for hoping for them to develop into a certain age, so or adapt into the Premier League after a year. Don't think Tonali needs that adaptation period, to say the least. You know, and it's not just Kobbie when we're talking about the makeup of everything, and we can talk about tactical aspects of what he could bring, especially in this side of that Carrick likes, because I'm really hoping Carrick does get the job. But you look at players like Bruno Fernandes as well. How do you get the best out of, you know, you could say a dying breed of 10 creative midfielders who can create as much as him? And you do look at players like Tonali, and he just elevates his game because he can do so much more better staying up there doing what he does best rather than everything that's going backwards. And we don't really want to see the new version of Bruno back in the 8, do we? No, of course not, because look what he's doing at the moment and what he's probably going to continue to do for at least another couple years at the highest level, right? But now if we look at a tactical aspect as well, with Manchester United, you look at the way Carrick has Man United set up to press, and you could, if we're being constructive about this, there's times where, you know, Carrick's press has been beaten by the likes of Fulham, and in a couple instances with Spurs as well, right, in terms of that build up, because we can't get close enough or quick enough to the man that we are meant to be triggering, you know, so we can win the ball back. Because I don't know, let's just say because Casemiro doesn't have the legs, but he has the defensive mindset, of course, to get some recoveries. If United could get to the part where they're winning the ball even higher up at a more successful rate, then who knows how many goals we can score if you get the likes of a Tonali, Anderson, and the rest of them. I just feel like with us, we just miss someone with like him, who I would like to think that from what I read off of him, in terms of what I read about him, Tonali is a lot of it is about mentality as well, and another one that brings a good brand of leadership. Because if you look into the camp of Newcastle, you'd actually find that not just Bruno Gomes and Joe Linton being like the head of the core of the group of leaders, it's Tonali as well. So if Tonali's there, and you're looking at the qualities that we do like when Casemiro does these, it's more than just his defensive capabilities. We're looking at his leadership as well, which is the most important part. You know, 5-time Champions League winner. So yeah, is Tonali too much? Of course he is. I think 100 million can definitely be negotiated to a point where if he's egging to leave in the same light as Isak, then we already know that Newcastle can be pushovers, and you know what? They will give you what they want as long as the price is somewhat reasonable, and they will fold as long as there's pressure from the player side. And right now as it stands, it looks like there is pressures, and a lot of pressures on the players' sides. And who knows if there's any sort of hidden clauses in the contracts that, you know, that where they can exit. You know, I think Tonali does have a good couple years left on that contract, a few years, so it won't be easy negotiation. It's just, does United allocate a lot of their time, which is again just as valuable as the money part, into trying to get him over the line, because it won't be quick. Like a Baleba. Baleba's a little bit more of a shoo-in because he wants Man United, and it's been a year, so a lot of that groundwork has been completed. But yeah, there's a lot of reasonings for why, you know, Tonali is just such a good fit for what we need. It's just, again, do we need that profile? If you don't get Anderson, do you look at Tonali and think that's the secondary profile to get? You know, this is, I would say, in 2026, when it does come to the, you know, to the transfer aspects of things, rather than listening to the same 3 names that keep popping out, I think this might actually be somewhat, you know, the most positive news if it is to be true. Now, Mike McGrath, I wouldn't call him a tier 1, but along the lines of tier 2, yeah, I think so. And you know what? One thing that's underrated with Tonali, I find, is actually his speed. I think, again, that's something that goes under the radar, and that's quite like Anderson, because he is also very fast and very nimble. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Is Tonali the right move or the wrong move? You know, 100 million breakout. What, you know, if we're gonna give it a little title, you know, we could call it something like the 100 million Tonali master plan. There we go. Or you know what? Should we do a different one? Let me have a little. You know what? I wrote some down. Now I'm going a little bit off. You know, a bit left. Or the 100 million Tonali bombshell. But I feel like he would be Carrick's kind of like perfect midfielder, and that's me assuming Carrick's the manager in the summer. Anyways, people, in a bit. And hopefully, you know, there might be a little bit more news in the coming weeks, maybe months. Peace.